1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good day to you. It's funny, I listened to that song in the opening and it says, here he comes to save the day, and I don't know what kind of day I could possibly be saving because it's already Sunday. Some would say the Lord's Day. Some would say football day. I think we all know which side of the coin I live on during this time of year. So let's get right into this. Thank you so much to all of you who are listening to this. I appreciate you all more than you could ever imagine. I think you're silly, but I appreciate you nonetheless. Hope it is a wonderful day wherever you are. And I want to get into this as I whistle while you work. I want to get into this a little bit right away, just because. So I was watching a movie the other day, and because it's coming up to my favorite time of year, and not because I'm a big Halloween fan or anything like that, like the whole trick-or-treating, kids doing all of that stuff. Could care less. I'm an adult. I can buy chocolate whenever I fucking want, right? Dressing up as an adult is that's just role play or cosplay, or maybe it's both. Maybe your cosplay is your role play. So I'm not, down with that so much. I don't go to costume parties or anything like that, but I enjoy the atmosphere of it all, and I really like this time of year because it's horror movie season, like from start to finish. As we see now, today is October 1st, and so for the next, right up until Halloween, there will be horror movies aplenty. So I don't know if y'all are fans of horror movies or not. I mean, I guess if you kind of had to take a look at me, you could guess that I'm not really a rom-com kind of guy. I do like comedies. I do like horror movies. I'm not a big action adventure, Indiana Jones, whatever, fucking Unbreakable. What are those Rambo and Dolph Lundgren fucking Indispensables or whatever the fuck? I always find myself picking them apart for their unrealisticness. You know what I mean? And yeah, I get the whole fucking supposed to suspend belief and everything like that. But action movies are just kind of silly. Now, a good kung fu movie or a good zombie movie, because you just heard me say, yeah, action movies are silly. But yeah, I'll fucking watch the shit out of a zombie movie, right? That shit's real and it just hasn't happened yet. It's coming. It's coming. We'll figure it out. Terry Nee, love horror movies. Those are different. That's a different kind of spelling. I was saying horror horror movies. I mean, I do like a good horror movie too. Who doesn't? Right? And there is some top tier talent out there nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. Holy crap. My partner in crime, because this is not me, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a fake. My partner in crime, Donnie, obviously checking in. Godfathers of Podcasting. Love a good horror movie like Plan 9 from Outer Space. I mean, Plan 9 from Outer Space is definitely something that qualifies. I don't know if it would qualify as a horror movie or a sci-fi movie, though, to be honest with you. It definitely qualifies as the biggest recipient of a Golden Turkey Award. I don't know if you guys know what Golden Turkey Awards are, or if they even have them nowadays, but they used to, this is before like Rotten Apples or Rotten Tomatoes or whatever the fuck it is. All the rest of those, like, Siskel and Ebert sites, but they had these books and they were Golden Turkey Awards. I remember Plan 9 from Outer Space ended up winning like 1 million of them or something like that because it was so schlocky, back in the days of like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, which qualifies as a horror movie. Weird. Toxic Avenger qualifies as a horror movie, even though it wasn't originally classified as a horror movie. There was a different working title even for it before it became Toxic Avenger, and nobody during the entire movie of Toxic Avenger, side note trivia for all y'all, nobody during the entire movie referred to him as the Toxic Avenger. It wasn't until the very end when the narrator got on the thing, and said, if you ever need help, the Toxic Avenger will be there. Up until that point, he was just referred to as the monster. In any case, there you go. Donnie is saying, when Ed Wood made Plan 9, it was promoted as the scariest movie ever. It turned out to be the funniest thing ever filmed. I mean, it was definitely, I don't know about ever, maybe back then, but I mean, you also got to remember we were dealing with a group of people that believed over the radio that aliens were coming. Right? People are just as susceptible to stupidity and brainwashing and suggestion as much as they were back then, right? But it got me thinking as well. I was hold on a second. The Killer Shrews in the 50s. There we go. See, now we're talking, right? You got to remember, like, you got like the original Nosferatu. I would think that, Nosferatu probably dates back before, Plan 9, right? But I mean, that's probably how they marketed it because, I mean, they knew it wasn't, silly scenes like 2 pie plates glued together, sliding down a string as your spaceship. Didn't even have a filter to put on the cameras for back then. The big bald-headed monster carrying somebody out of the brush, and they couldn't bother to scan the camera up any further so that they didn't see all of the pillows all over the ground where he's supposed to drop said human. So I get it. But at this point, you'd think that when you just you make the movie, maybe embrace it, maybe lean into it a little bit, right? Seems to be a lot of that going on the internet nowadays, just leaning into shit. Craziness. But it got me thinking about a movie that I did watch. It was a comedy movie the other day. And it's been out for a little bit. It's a movie called Neighbors. Couple lives next door to a frat house. I think you've all seen it. It's a very funny movie. Trying to have some peace and quiet. Maybe a little bit of alone time with your wife, whatever. But there's always a party going on in that house next door. There's always some asshole, running in. And it's your typical frat house kind of movie. Lots of drug scenes, lots of drinking, lots of alcohol, lots of loud music, lots of shit that you don't really want in your fucking neighborhood. Now, when you're younger, you do, but when you're older, you don't. So like I own a house now, and the last thing I would want is for a party house to open up next door to me. I honestly can't think that it would last for very long because I would probably knock on their door and make a few suggestions. But at one time when I was younger, party house was what not only you wanted to live in, you wanted to own, you wanted to have, you wanted to be the place where everybody went and hung out. right? It also kind of meant that you were somewhat the most responsible one because everybody back then probably still lived at home because they were smart. So when I moved from the United States to Toronto, Canada, I stayed with my mother, her husband, and my little brother in a very tiny 2-bedroom apartment, right, for a little bit. And then you get your own place because, oh boy, it just doesn't work out. And I can remember I had one of these places. My little brother is 5 years younger than me. And some of his friends, when they were in high school and stuff like that. And then some of my own friends, a little bit older. And I had an apartment. I had an apartment that was above a restaurant, right? The only way you could get to it was to go through one door that was like the back of the building and like up like 2 flights of stairs. And there was 2 apartments. There was mine that overlooked the front of the building. And then there was one little tiny piece of shit one that overlooked the back. There was nothing above us but roof. And that was the really cool thing because we also had access outside of the kitchen. There was a little door and you could go out onto the roof and it was like this great big huge flat deck patio, so to speak, right? But you could walk from one end of the roof and out onto, to overlook the street, the main street that this was on. Very busy street. Restaurant downstairs from us, lots of walk-up traffic. And then behind us is just this gigantic parking lot that backed onto a hotel. And this was one of those hotels. This was one of those hotels that like you could live in very cheaply for the month. You know what I mean? Not the fanciest of places. It's a place called the Ports Hotel in Port Credit, Mississauga, just outside of a little borough of Toronto. And this was the place that everybody kind of congregated to for parties, right? This was the place that everybody, because it was referred to as the party house. And I still get messages to this day from people, oh man, remember when you lived in the party house? I'm like, yeah, yep, I do. And that's the end of this conversation with you. Because if you still remember it, y'all need to move on. Because I've done a lot of shit since then. I hope you have too. But I will always remember, like, this was a place where we would have ridiculous parties with people spilling out onto the streets, basically onto the roof. And it was set up in such a way that I also unloaded a lot of party favors out of that place. But it was set up in such a way that like there was always somebody on the rooftop, front and back, and there's always somebody inside of the apartment. Kind of like a New Jack City, but way different and no budget, no crack cocaine. Just weed. A lot of weed. A lot of weed. And in doing so, I can remember one night I had picked up about a half pound just to turn over quick. And then ended up not even having to fluff it up, bag it up, anything like that. Just sold it. Boom. In one hand, out the other. Just kind of a middleman on the deal. And then I decided I was going to go to the movies. So I made a couple of bucks, We're going to go to the movies. My roommate was going to stay home. So we go out to the movies. And then I get home and there's no door on my front door. It's gone. Like I come in the back area, I go up the stairs, I go to turn the little stair thing, boop, there's no fucking door there. So I'm freaking out. So I go in and my roommate is sitting on the couch by himself. And I'm like, what happened to the door? And he proceeds to tell me a story about how he was sitting at home, just him, just by himself. This happened to be one of the only moments where there was only one person at the door because everybody knew that I wasn't home. I was gone. I was out to the movies. Well, apparently the people that didn't get the memo on this one was the fine constituents of the police force. And so he proceeds to tell me a story about how he's sitting there minding his own business and there's a knock at the door. And he's like, who is it? And they say that it's, the police. And he thinks it's either me or friends or something like that fucking around. So he ignores it. Doesn't even respond. Whatever. Bang, 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 bang. Another knock at the door. Bill Regional Police opened the door. Now he starts to get lippy. He says to me, he goes, so I told them, if you got a key, you can come in. If not, fuck off. At which point he says, the door came flying off the hinges, landed on the floor, and 3 dudes spilled through the doorway with shotguns pointing at his face while he was sitting on the couch. And he's telling me this stuff, and I'm laughing. He's like, it's not funny, dude. I'm like, well, I'm sure it wasn't funny for you, but to me right now, fucking hilarious. So I said, what did they want? And he says, so they were looking for you. I'm like, really? Yeah, they were looking for you, and they came in to raid the place. I go, what'd they get? Now, because I knew that I had nothing. I had nothing in the house. It was all gone. All of the personal stuff that I had was on me, because that's why it's fucking called personal. So I was clean. So basically, they busted in my door for nothing. But he had about 3.5 grams of some hash that he had in his room. Now, he also got into a little bit of trouble from the police, because it was also at that point that the police came back out of his room after, checking it all out and finding 3.5 grams of hash. Whoop-de-doo. They found his cat. My roommate had a cat. I'm not a huge cat person, but, whatever. It's not my thing. But they started questioning him about animal cruelty stuff, because I, in messing with the cat, decided that I had made a little toy for the cat to, chase around, like this little piece of rope, so you could just put the little loop over the cat's head. May or may not have been shaped like a noose. And then the cat could just play with the little cat toy that was attached to the other end of the rope. So they started questioning him, because my roommate didn't know that I had done this earlier in the day. And then I went to the movies, and his cat was under the bed. And then the cat comes out when the cops get there and starts getting all purry with them, I guess. And then start asking him, why is there a noose, a perfectly 2-scale size noose, tied around this cat's neck? So he was a little pissed off at me for that one. Needless to say, the police did not come back. They did not find any drugs. I did not get arrested, nor did I go to jail. And the parties at that house, for about another month and a half, 2 months, kept going. And then, it was time to go, time to move on to another place. Which basically just turned into Party House 2.0, right? It wasn't really until I left that part of the world and moved to downtown Toronto that that stuff stopped. Living in downtown Toronto, you would think you would party more living in downtown Toronto, but I did not. Partied a lot less, worked a lot more, did a lot more things. Prior to all of this, you can remember when you talk about jobs, it's got to be one of the toughest things, especially as a young person moving to a different country, right? Moving to a different country and then trying to find a job. And I mean, like, a proper job, not like, oh, I moved there for work. That's an adult thing. That's not what you do when you're, being asked by, when you're being asked by the police and the judges to leave. Then you got to go to another country. That's really weird. The computer just did a pop-up saying that it wanted to do a restart. I was like, nope, no, you don't. No, you don't. Not right now. So obviously the first choice was, trying to get a job in a restaurant. Seems to be what everybody does as a kid. But I managed to get a job at a place that makes bricks. I know. Fucking super exciting, right? It's a place called Unilock. It was out in Georgetown. A little place about 40 minutes outside of Mississauga. Blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. But I got this job at this place that made bricks, and my whole job there was to go along, and there's this gigantic room that had these skids of bricks, and where they went and dried, and you had to go on the next day and try to, smash out the ones that were kind of broken or chipped and put in new ones so that these perfect bundles could go over to the strapping area, where a guy would, like an electric strapping machine, would put a couple of bands around these bricks. They would go down a line. A big tow motor forklift with these side clamps would pick up two of them, take them out to the yard, stack them up out in the yard. So I had this job for half a minute when I got promoted. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's pretty good. I've been promoted. I didn't know why, really. Until the next day, when I found out that the guy who ran the strapping part of the machine, okay, this is one of those electric strapping machines where it's like you've got like a gun and a clamper, big hydraulic hose, and you push the button and a piece of strapping comes shooting around the top. You grab a hold of it and you clamp this thing on and you give that thing a squeeze and it pulls everything nice and tight, hydraulic, very quick, boom, puts a clamp on it, out it goes. Time. It's one of these production line fucking things, right? It's got to be fast. Got to be now. Well, apparently in doing so, this guy, the guy whose job I got, because he couldn't do his job anymore, because basically he was doing the strapping stuff and the strap came around the top of his fingers and held his hand inside of basically strapped his fingers in his glove to the bricks. And then he decided to freak out because obviously it was really fast and they're metal and it was cutting off very quickly. He pulls his hand out as it's clamping down tighter and tighter and ends up filleting his fingers. Basically pulled off the skin of the tips of his fingers, the three, apparently. Glove and all, skinned it. Like it was a scene out of, Poltergeist or some shit. So they decided they were going to give me this job, and I thought, oh, that's great. Cool. Didn't come with any more money. Didn't come with any more anything, right? So my job then was to strap these things, send them down the line, jump in the tow motor, clamp these things up, and stack them in the yard. And you'd think to yourself that was, probably something that you could do for a very long time. Probably be really broke, but you're going to be one of these blue collar guys that just works at a brickyard for the rest of your life, right? Well, it didn't teach me anything there other than the fact that I learned how to roll a joint with one hand while driving a forklift or a tow motor, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't really a forklift because it had side clamps. So a tow motor. This is one of those great big huge ones too, right? So I mean, if it taught me anything, that's what it taught me. It taught me the ability to roll a joint with one hand. That's a fucking skill. I don't know if you can put it on your resume, but it's a skill nonetheless. So I decided it was time to get out of there. And I went and got another job. I went and got a job running a if you can believe this or not, it was a company called St. Clair Paint and Wallpaper. This is one of those specific stores, like a Color Your World or fucking Benjamin Moore store or something like that, where you just specifically go to this one store. Okay. This used to be a thing just for paint or wallpaper and sometimes window blinds, right? Just working at a paint store, not like your old school, hey, Joe, how's it going this week kind of thing. No, this is a little bit more bougie than that because this company actually sent you to what they would call school. That's right. In order to work at one of their stores, you had to go for a week. Okay. 8 hours a day for a week to a head office location and learn about paint. Yeah. It's literally just as fucking boring as watching that shit dry, is learning about it. It's pretty simple, folks. Says it on the can. This is how much it covers. This is what it is. Fuck off. Take your paint and get out of here. It's a little silly. Absolutely a little silly. So, I can remember one time working there. And we had one of these like manager guys that he was very much like a Steve Carell character out of The Office, right? Just that kind of like nerd that wanted to try to fit in, wanted to be cool, but didn't really know how to be cool. You know what I mean? There's a few of those people around. Some of them have shows. I'm probably one of them. But he was one of these dudes, who always wanted to try to fit in and stuff like that. And then he got busted for stealing. It's wacky. The whole thing turned crazy. I left there and I went and got a job. Working at a restaurant. Back at a restaurant. One of these family restaurants, right? Like a Sizzler or TGIFs or an Applebee's or one of those things, right? One of those types of family restaurants. 37 million fucking things on the menu. Remember one time I had a prep cook who had to make a great big thing of apple crumble and forgot to read the bottle that they used because the malt vinegar bottle in the back was shaped exactly like the vanilla bottle in the back. And so needless to say, when the apple crumble went into the oven and started smelling not so good, it was because it was full of malt vinegar and not vanilla. That was fucking hilarious. But I remember this one time I had to get insurance for a vehicle, right? I had bought a vehicle off of my mom. She had one of these little mini trucks. And they don't make mini trucks anymore. I don't know if you notice this or not. There's one of these little Dodge D50 mini truck. Like there's like, you remember you had the Datsun, you had the Dodge D50, you had the Chevy Love, right? There are all these just like smaller versions of mini trucks. And then in the States, everybody took those mini trucks and they like slammed them down to the ground or put scissor lifts and hydraulics in the beds of them and filled them full of speakers. And they became like these show vehicles. You know what I mean? Even before like Volkswagen Bugs and all of that kind of stuff. So she had one of these trucks, and I had to buy this thing because I needed transportation and I needed to get this thing insured. I can remember one time I was working at the restaurant and we had a customer come in, and the customer was like, I want hot wings. The waitress is like, well, these are the wings that we have. And he's like, no, I want them really hot. I heard that there's a guy back there who can make them really hot. He was talking about me because I had made hot wings for other people or whatever, but I was like, oh, all right. Well, that seems kind of fucking strange. So waitress, telling me this, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make you some wings. I'm gonna make this guy some wings. They're gonna be the hottest fucking wings he's ever had. So I proceeded to, cook down the wings, cook down a sauce to like a paste, put that on the wings, threw those under the broiler for a little bit to cook it in, more sauce on them, right? Back into the broiler to cook them down. I basically made an extract of sauce, like this emulsion of hell, right? The kind of stuff that reminded you of what it would be like to suck off Hephaestus. Hephaestus is the Greek god of fire and volcanoes. Anyways, see, told you, fucking nerd. So I proceeded to make these wings for him and send them out. All of a sudden, waitress comes back and she's like, hey, customer for the wings, he would like to meet you. So I go out there, and this guy is just like fucking sweating bullets. He looks like he's dying. He's crying. He's got, tears and snot running down his face. And all he could say to me was like, thank you so much. And you could see just the burnt. And it's like, why would somebody put themselves through this? Was my first question, right? He was like, yeah, no problem. Great. Cool. But I'm looking at this dude like, you're fucking corny, dude. You're weird, right? So then flash forward 2 days later, and I've got an appointment to go, meet my brand new insurance broker, who happens to be my mom's insurance broker at the time for auto insurance. I think it was through Sears or some bullshit too. It's wacky. I go meet this guy and I walk into his office, and sure as shit, it's the guy from the restaurant that I tried to kill with hot wings 2 days before. So you never know who exactly you're going to encounter out there, in the real world with what your job entails and what their job entails. Now, nice thing is that he enjoyed the wings, so I ended up getting a little bit of a discount, on my insurance, which certainly helped. But he never did come back to the restaurant, and he said that his guts were not the same for, since he had eaten them, and it was 2 days later. So my work here was done. It made me think, though. It made me think about, like, you can only imagine putting yourself through this kind of excruciating pain. Putting your mouth through that. Now, there's those people that don't have the senses or the smarts, I guess. They don't feel the burn, so they can just eat hot stuff. You know what I mean? Like the hottest stuff, they don't have those same kind of taste buds, I guess. I enjoy flavorful, spicy foods. I don't enjoy, hot fucking one chip challenge. You know what I mean? Devil's toe gummy, like, gotta sign a fucking waiver to eat this stuff kind of food. That just seems pointless to me. I don't know about you guys, but I would think that, like, you have to be able to at least taste your food first, before making it ruin your guts and then eventually your asshole on the way out. I always used to have a saying my mom gave me. After every time you would have, like, spicy food or whatever, you were always sitting there the next morning just going, come on, ice cream. And that's why you have ice cream after spicy food. You're just trying to run it through your system. Anyways. And it got me to thinking, when you're doing this, when you're eating this, and you actually ask somebody to prepare it for you, are you allowed to then call them names afterwards? You know what I mean? Because I would think that like the first thing that you would call them is like, really bad things, right? Like, this motherfucker's trying to kill me, but I asked for it. So does that seem weird, right? And you have to ask yourself, what qualifies as a slur? I mean, we knew what qualified as a slur back in the day. It was nothing qualified as a slur. At least, nothing that was unacceptable and you had to look over your shoulder before saying it. Nowadays, I mean, it seems like everything is a slur. I mean, we know about the usual ones, the N-word slurs, and now apparently the F word, right? And I don't mean fidgety, but it's close to that. Pretty soon, are we not allowed to call somebody a cocksucker? Because it's discriminatory towards people that actually suck cock? I don't know, man. It's just one of those things. It's crazy. So, once again, thank you so much to everybody. Appreciate you all. Hello, Anita Herrera. It's very nice to see you in here. I hope you guys are doing well. It's football day. I'm sorry that the Pittsburgh Steelers have to play today. But I mean, anytime you guys decide to convert to a real Pennsylvania team, the Philadelphia Eagles will gladly have you. They're not doing the greatest, but they're winning. Damn it, they're winning. Tiff, thanks again. You don't have to thank me. I haven't done nothing. Thank you. Thank you for always showing up. Thank you for always listening. Thank you for always supporting. And then, yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real person. It's not a bot. Although there is, lots of rumors about people using bots, fake accounts, fake views, all of that. Listen, as you can see, if I was to do it, I would do it for a lot more than what are watching this. So the ones that do watch it, the ones that take the time to watch it now, live or later, I appreciate y'all. It's fantastic. This and many other shows, as you can see behind me there, we do all of them. We have fun. We have laughs. So after the party house, after leaving that part of the world, moving to downtown Toronto, got me to thinking, what am I doing with jobs? At this point, I had worked in a brick making place. I'd worked in a paint store. I'd worked in a restaurant. And then I had a job working security at a pool hall / bar / arcade. You know what I mean? One of these all ages places. I've told the story before on some of the past episodes. These all ages places, where you had to make sure that the underage people were only near the pool tables with no alcohol around them, or in the arcade, but they couldn't go out into the bar area. We all know how that stuff works out. Kids find a way. So it was one of these places, and the younger teenage or middle teenage kids would hang out. You know what I mean? Try to sell fucking a little bit of pot outside the doors or buy drugs. Not that I knew who was giving it to them, but these are all like my little brothers ages and whatnot. Then I got that job there. That moved me into working down in Toronto at clubs. And eventually, I find myself working at probably one of the busiest nightclubs in all of Toronto. Place called Whiskey Saigon. And it was actually there that I ran into and met a lot of people, in your real part of life, right? One of those guys, right? And I was working there, 90, 94, 95, 96, like those years. And further. But it was there that I met my co-host of the Godfathers of Podcasting, Donnie De Silva. And he had come up to me one day and asked me about, if I wanted to, because we would have these conversations. We'd have these conversations at night while we were working, about different things, about fighting, about chicks' asses as they went by, about dudes' asses as they went by, about pro wrestling, stuff like that. And I would, always tell them stories about how I was, growing up in Vegas, and you would go to some of the events at the Showboat Hotel for AWA when they would film them there. You'd fall in love with, characters like Jimmy Superfly Snuka and, the Rock and Roll Express, and not so much Rock and Roll Buck Zoom Off, because that could get you in trouble. Look it up. Guys like Colonel De Beers, One Man Gang, a lot of these dudes. And there's always Snuka that, gets everybody over. It's weird. You look at everybody's story about, when did you fall in love with wrestling? And they tell you a story about when I was a kid, I saw this match with Jimmy Superfly Snuka. For a lot of that generation, it's a match where he jumps off the top of a cage onto Don Morocco or whatever. But for me, it was prior to that. And it was a program that he ran with Colonel De Beers. And I would always tell these stories, about my love for wrestling. And Donnie would compare him to his and the things that he would be watching, like Stampede and Maple Leaf Wrestling and all of these things. And then he was approached by a gentleman that he knew about doing a show. And he had asked me, he's like, hey, I need a co-host for this thing. We've had these conversations. You clearly have a love for wrestling. Would you like to do these, these shows with me? He's like, yeah, fuck it. Why not? Let's do this. Let's have some fun. So the whole concept, everything was, started by him, Jeff Merrick, right? Other guys that were there at the time were at this station called Virtually Canadian, which was like one of the first online radio stations ever. There was one down in New York as well. I can't remember the name of them right now, right? That was doing online radio. Very few, though. It's 1996, I want to say, right? Maybe late 95, 96. We'll say 96. And so he has the idea. He says, yep, I got a name for it, everything. We go in there and we do that first episode. The music hits and he says, this is Slam, the wrestling show. And you're listening, blah, 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 Virtually Canadian, right? Well, Slam was also the word and name for a group owned by the newspaper in town. It's called Slam Sports. They had like Slam baseball and football and even wrestling. There's a gentleman by the name of, Greg Oliver, who ran this entire thing. And I've since gotten to know Greg over the years, and his coverage of sports and mainly wrestling. And, he's written a bunch of books. He's been around for a long time. A lot of people know his name. And he was very, a lot of people knew his name then. So after one show And obviously he's tuning in to check it out. After one show, he sends a friendly letter, a friendly reminder from himself and his employers that we shouldn't be calling it Slam Sports or Slam Wrestling because there already is one. That's fair, right? And I could see how you could get into a little bit of trouble for this. So rather than, because we didn't have any kind of money, we didn't have any kind of like big lawyers or anything like that. We had Headley Jones, right? You could maybe talk him out of it, but that wasn't going to get us no place. The owner of the company didn't have any money, right? The only people that brought in money on this station was us. It seemed like. Now a lot of people sprouted out of this organization and out of this station to go on and doing very, 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 very cool things. Like I mentioned, George Strombolopoulos, Bob Makowitz Jr. became a producer of a TV show called Off the Record with Michael Landsberg. Jeff Merrick, of course, everybody knows him from all the various, hockey stuff that he does. We were asked nicely before sending one of these cease and desist letters to stop using the name Slam Wrestling, Slam the Wrestling Show or something like that, right? And so, of course, not having the kind of money to fight this, we decided, all right, let's come up with a name. So it's still 1996 at this point, right? And so we all go up into the boardroom, big long table, all of these empty chairs, mostly empty. We called it a boardroom, but it was mostly where people ate lunch and didn't do a whole hell of a lot more. So we're sitting up there and we're just kind of spitballing names back and forth, trying to figure something out to call this show. And so everybody's going back and forth, and I'm just kind of quiet, and I'm thinking in my head, right? What is it that we do? What is it that the show is? It's a live radio show about wrestling, right? And a lot of shit talking, but mostly wrestling. Some MMA as well. Now, not yet at this point, right? But that was coming. So it was mostly and pretty much all wrestling. There's a radio show, which is an audio show, right? It's not a visual. It's just audio. And we are live. Is there anything there that you can work with? And I was always one of those acronym kind of guys, right? And I said, well, we're going to call the show The Law. The Law. We are the law in this realm of news and reporting and the world of professional wrestling, right? We are the authority. We are the ones, the be all and end all, the law. And it also happens to stand for live audio wrestling. Crazy idea. I know. Mind blown, right? That somebody could come up with such a concept, such an idea so long ago, right? Way before 1999, even before 1997. So we decided, yep, that's a great idea. Cool. Brand it, tag it, get it in the works. And for any of you that ever followed anything after that, we went on, even as The Law, live audio wrestling, The only show, like I said, that was ever to make any kind of real money at that station. And the reason that it did is because we were allowed to go out and find our own sponsorship. Now, this was the wild fucking west back then of any kind of radio shows, because this was all online. So there was no rules. This was before, Sirius XM radio, satellite radio and stuff, right? This was way before podcasting, right? Wasn't even called podcasting. This silly tagline. It was way before any of these things. So it was really the wild, wild west. You didn't have to worry about regulations, and who is going to come down, and you can say whatever the fuck you want. Nobody knew how to even handle this stuff, this internet radio stuff. And nobody even knew how to handle a wrestling show about it, right? After we had started, another show down in New York had started a show called And Justice for Brawl. All right. And we would actually get into a couple of times, while they were live on air, or we were live on air, phoning into each other's shows to cut promos on one another, creating heat, like creating, I will shit down your fucking mother's neck kind of heat. It was ridiculous. So much so that they got to the point where I actually went to a show in New York that I knew the host of that show was going to be at, because I was going to beat the shit out of him. Get there, and he is nothing but nice as pie to me. I thought we were just doing a bit. It's like, I don't do bits, bro. I don't do unplanned bits. Okay. You don't just call that shit on the fly with me, because I didn't take it very nicely. But it was such the wild, wild west thing, is that they didn't know how to sell us a wrestling show. Who the fuck does this? Right? The owner of the place didn't know how to sell us at all. So it was up to us. Listen, if you guys can go out and you guys can get sponsorship, good luck. You'll never be able to. But if you can keep all of it. It's all yours. No problems. Okay. Fucking tempt me with a good time. And so that's exactly what I did. And I knew that it was such the wild, wild west. And this goes back to Terry Nee's comment earlier, right? Where he says he loves horror movies. Well, so I went out and I managed to gather up some meetings with a company, okay, that was being run out of Toronto, not far from where I was living. A company that did online pornography. The company was called Smutland. I don't know if it's still around out there or not. You can probably look it up, smutland.com. And they had, they had live streaming stuff going on from back then. They had like cam rooms and, repurposing pornography and putting it out there and doing all of that. So I got a meeting with them saying, hey, we've got this crazy, wild, in-your-face, absurd, raunchy, raw wrestling show that we do. And he's like, what? Professional wrestling. And we'd like to bring you on. We'd like to get you to sponsor us. And we'd like to make you part of this whole process. Not just like, hey, here's their commercial or tagline. No. How about we get some of your girls to do some reads for us? How about we, promote your products in a way, because you can't promote your product. There's no place that's going to let you promote your product except for a place like us. And so they finally agreed to do this to the tune of about $5,000 a month. The owner of Virtually Canadian couldn't believe it. It was the only time that, they were making decent money. We're talking, like I said, late 90s, right? So 25 plus years ago. And we were able to bring in sponsorship money from a porn site, as well as getting the girls to come down and do like these salacious, wild, over the top, horny as hell reads, for our show, right? That show also launched other people, right? And we'll get into that one at a later date. Probably one of the biggest names in all of pro wrestling, I'll say journalism, doing very, very well, right? Fantastic stuff. So just a little bit of background, and the reason that we're telling this kind of story here about live audio wrestling is because I want to make sure that the dates and everything are correct. I want people to know about this on record because I've always talked about this, and even Wikipedia has it wrong. So if you're getting your information from Wikipedia, your information is wrong. And then when you do things based on that information, you're assuming, right? So don't assume, just come to me and ask. Come to any of the people and ask that when we started all of this stuff in 1996, I sat down and I named it. And then I walked away giving it to the people that were doing the show. Donnie, Jeff Merrick, right? Later on, turned into Jason Agnew, John Pollock, right? Dan Lavransky, right? My good friend Mike Wixon had his hand in there as well when it came time to, sit down with people to buy it. But I had given them the name to use. Remember that in the future, because we'll probably get into that one a little bit. Now, that being said, I hope everybody is having a wonderful Sunday. I hope everybody is going to do nice things. I know we've got one more week until Fakesgiving in Canada. That's right. I said it. What? Fight me on it. It's Fakesgiving. Okay? Canada didn't have any pilgrims, right? Your Thanksgiving is weird. You do Thanksgiving after Halloween, not before, right? Weirdos. But anyways, I get it. It's because it's supposed to be like to signify the harvest, right? And that is a true statement. Those of you that know me, those of you that live near enough, or those of you that want to make the drive. Yes, I just said that. Buh, whatever your name is. I know you. We call it harvest. Well, it's good because I expect you to be here on that harvest weekend. All right. We'll be having some brisket. We'll be going to the fair like they do in small towns on those things, and we'll be harvesting. All right. Those of you that know and want to send me a DM, find out what it is. It's kind of like pick your own strawberries, but different. And that's what we're going to be doing. I appreciate the hell out of the harvest, but don't call it Thanksgiving. Call it the harvest then, right? Why don't you just call it fucking October, whatever it is, and we're celebrating the harvest or the harvest giving. No, you called it Thanksgiving because you're trying to fucking glom onto something, right? You're lucky. You're fucking lucky the United States doesn't send you a letter, a very stern, bullying letter asking you not to call it Thanksgiving anymore. You're damn lucky. Probably get some intern to write up a fucking letter to send to you, right? Please, you cannot call it Thanksgiving anymore. We've been calling it Thanksgiving for the last 200 years And you guys have only been around for 100 years. In fact, don't you remember? Some of you were even Americans before you were Canadians, or give you some bullshit. Written up by a fucking intern trying to bully you into not using the name Thanksgiving anymore. Could you imagine? What if you're the one that came up with the fucking name Thanksgiving? This is stupid. What am I doing? That would just be silly, wouldn't it? If you named it, maybe you named it Thanksgiving first, right? And then the United States started using the name Thanksgiving, but because they've been around and using it longer than you have, you'd have to change the name of your Canadian Thanksgiving to Thanks for the Harvest Day dinner, whatever. Would you do it? Would you do it, or would you just tell the United States, fuck off, cocksucker? We'll burn down your White House again. What would you do? That's interesting. It's an interesting concept. Would intellectual property rights come into play? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining me for another hour of stupid shit, right? It's time to go watch some games, have some fun, enjoy the weather. It's sunny. It's great. Get outside. Make sure that harvest is good to go for you next weekend. Make sure you got enough workers. I almost said Mexicans to come and clear that up. Oh boy, I'm stupid. I got to get out of here. It is sunshine there, Tiff. It's sunshine here too. It's fantastic. Everybody should have that. I'm sure that if you were to ask Anita Herrera, it is also sunshine where she is. Whew. Glad I got through that one. Okay. Sunshine where she is. Right. Anyways, once again, thank you all. I appreciate the hell out of you. Like I said, kindly hit that like button on your way out of here. Those that do want to donate to my stupid ass, please feel free as well. Makes it a little bit easier coming and doing these things some days, you know. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful week. We have some stuff coming up. We have a new Mirror Wanderers that'll probably be coming out this week. I just have to let those guys know. And we are still editing some stuff for behind our Patreon that we'll be launching very shortly as well. It was a very busy weekend this weekend. Had a birthday party to go to, which meant that yesterday was a complete fucking write-off. But we're getting after it. Anyways, on that note, enjoy the rest of your day. Send me a message later on. Let's chat. Love you all. Take care.